Greetings, everyone. Welcome once again to the Branding Beardos podcast. Big John and Kenneth Lee here, bringing you, our loyal listeners and viewers, more Asian perspectives. Now, our next guest is a serial marketer, not serial killer, who has over 20 adventurous years in the healthcare industry. He is currently head
Wow.
of Asia for the women's health franchise at Zuellig Pharma. And his adventures with the pharma industry also include stints at Allergan. Is it Allergan? Is that correct?
Elegant,
Allergan, oh
Elegant.
my
yeah,
gosh.
the Botox
Allergan and
company.
Pfizer, the
Oh.
Botox company. And Pfizer, where he also served in senior management and regional executive positions. Now, this man knows plenty about pain, suffering, problems with the heart, caring for open wounds, and problems with doing a number one. Having also been in charge of therapeutic areas such as the cardiovascular, urology, pain management, women's health, wound care, and osteoporosis. However, it's not all about pain and suffering with this guy. He also knows a lot about making love. And he'll tell
Mm.
you stories about a
Amen.
little blue
The blue
pill. Let's talk about
pill.
sex, baby. Let's talk
Amen.
about you and me. Now, Frederick Fong,
Oh.
welcome to the Branding Beardos podcast, and
Welcome,
welcome everyone to another segment of
Frederick.
Thank you,
Towkay
thank you, thank
Talks.
you. Oh my goodness.
Welcome,
Branding
Frederick.
Beardos. Happy to be here, guys. Yeah, thanks.
Happy to
Thanks for
have
the good
you.
welcome. Yeah.
Yes, although yet another unbearded guest.
Chinese cannot grow beard lah, only except for
No,
Kenneth
they
lah.
said, but I think Kenneth mentioned that I think he rubbed in vodka or something. I don't know what else he rubbed in.
XO, XO.
XO. Put
XO.
XO. Put XO. Try.
So Frederick, I've known you for a few years.
Yeah,
Give or
years.
take
Last time
years
we
already,
met
right?
was about three over years.
30
Right?
kilos ago.
30 kilos ago. Congratulations, man. Cool. I'm still stuck in the fatty land, man.
No, I'm still a fatty. Just that the face look good, but actually the body is not much difference. I still a roly poly fella.
Still need to Rocky Balboa, lah, right? Continue.
Yeah, still look like a potato on two wheels now that I'm
But
cycling.
fantastic. 30 kg is no joke, man. Continue the journey, man.
Keep going, bro. Keep going.
Keep going.
This story I know that you told many times, but
Yeah.
because I really get a kick out of it, and it's really in the mind of a marketer. Like really. Wow, I mean, who would have thought of that idea? But tell me that can we start off with that story? You must tell the little blue pill story.
Okay, well, when I was in Pfizer, right? So we were managing the little blue pill is Viagra, and it's for when we first launched Viagra, it was really around a story of meeting an unmet need around serious medical conditions, like if you're diabetic or if you have heart problems or old age or whatever conditions you cannot get it up, right? So we started off with the typical pharmaceutical narrative, right? It's for a serious medical condition, and we wanted to restore quality of life. That was when before I managed Viagra. So, uh, 3 years down the road, or about 3 to 4 years down the road, in terms of life cycle management, right? Viagra already was not the only product that was available. We had competitors. And with the competitors, they have different claims, right? And different claims such as, oh, we are super fast. No, within 14 minutes, you can get it up and running and you're like a hero, right? And the other competitor, the third competitor is, we will make you like Superman for 36 hours. You can rock and roll until
Wow.
your partner will create a shrine and worship you. Okay, so that was the positions that the other two competitors have. So looking at Viagra was the first
Oh my
in the
gosh, this is
market, right?
good.
So Viagra was first in the market, and we were seen as the fuddy daddies, the old school, right? Because although we had an advantage or as a first mover advantage, but there were new kids on the block. So when I took over Viagra marketing, right, one of the things that I had to compel myself to do is, because pharmaceuticals, you need to back up every claim with actual medical evidence, right? So, me and my medical team, my colleagues, we looked through and poured through our evidence, and we discovered that, hey, simply put, Viagra compared to the other two products out there, we offer harder erections in terms of rigidity. So you can imagine, for whatever positions that you want to adopt, as you switch in transition, it's still rock solid. Okay, so
Wow.
that is something that is, for couples or guys out there, the true value of, during the transition period, you don't let your guard down, you
During
still
the transition,
exactly,
don't let your guard down. Oh my
Yeah.
god, that's so
Okay.
good.
So we had to find a fun way of communicating this medical or this clinical value proposition, right? But how do we find a fun way that resonates not only with the medical community but the everyday man out in the streets, right? Immediately, what will resonate, right? When we wanted to portray Viagra equates to rock solid erections, rigidity. So hardness matters. Doesn't matter if you can last like Superman for 36 hours. If the thing lambe or soft, no point. Or even if you can get it up in quick time, 40 minutes. During transition period, you are from a hero to zero. Also no point. Viagra, consistency, rigidity, hardness. So the true value in that. And since you asked me about this question, let me show you. I have my marketing materials from 20 years ago. Let me show you, okay? Hold on.
He has the marketing material, guys. Wow. Oh boy. Oh wow, that's amazing.
Okay, so bear with me. I show you some marketing
My
materials.
face is
My
red.
god, you're amazing. This is like, I
Hey
think, hands
guys,
down one of the best.
can you read
Okay.
this?
Oh my god.
You can read this, right?
Tofu.
What is your erection
Oh shit.
score?
Oh,
And we
yeah.
actually created, and this is
Holy
this is not
cow.
and this is not something that is concocted, right? This questionnaire here, which has 4 different grades, quality of erections, it's really anchored on actual algorithm that has been recognized by international medical societies. Okay,
Oh my.
so
Who
just
measured enough? Who measured enough?
silence. Don't get excited. Silence. So how do we portray
No, but
rigidity?
I mean, who measured enough erections to come up with an algorithm?
Hello. In the medical line, people sniff armpits just to see how smelly it is for research and development.
Oh my
What
god.
more about measuring the rigidity of your erections? People sniff armpits, bro. You know, for clinical science purposes. So I just show you, right? If I flip the this particular material to the other side, we created this material and we displayed in all GPs, family physicians in Singapore.
Yeah.
And when a ape or uncle or middle-aged guy walks in, immediately he sees this. So you see the rigidity of the erections is being portrayed by everyday items like a cucumber. Cucumber is grade 4, really solid, right? If you hold a cucumber. Grade 3 is an unpeeled banana. If you press it, the rigidity is hard, but still a little bit limness. Then you peel the banana. Of course, you can break it into
Soft.
halves. And then the last one is tofu. That one is complete loser, right? And immediately when we launched this, it resonated with the everyday man. You see, we had a good laugh. The serious doctors and the urologists out there, they felt it was tongue in cheek, but yet palatable enough, because the actual questionnaire that we did, right, was anchored on real science and research, and endorsed by some of the medical associations. So a balance between having a little bit of fun in your branding campaigns and your communication messages, but yet not losing the integrity of pharmaceutical marketing. And I was telling Kenneth earlier on, in pharmaceutical marketing, we are in an industry that is highly regulated. So there's a lot of do's and don'ts, but more don'ts than do's. So this is just an example of just injecting an element of fun to jazz things up. Yeah.
I actually think it's really very smart to use like vegetables, because like even like if you gave me the data, right, I wouldn't be able to immediately make that leap into, oh, let's think about vegetables and use vegetables. Like how did you, right? Like right, John, how did you like go from, okay, this all the data to, as a marketer in a marketer's mind, you go, maybe we can try like using it vegetables. Like, how do you do that?
Actually, it was not solely an idea for me, right? It was a brainstorming session with my colleagues, and normally I'll reach out to fellow marketers from Taiwan, Hong Kong, Malaysia. So we did have a brainstorming session, and exactly to your question, right? We asked ourselves, who wears the pants in the house? Who makes the decisions in the house? If the husband or boyfriend cannot get it up, or is a suboptimal man, will get tekan by who? Or will get chided by who? It's the wife. It's the wife, it's the girlfriend, right? And immediately we connected, wife, girlfriend, they are the ones normally in charge of household items, right? So you go to the supermarkets and you go to the market, and then we challenge ourselves, if you find things in the market, what will represent solid rigidity, hard erections? So we say what? Papaya, pineapple, cannot lah. So cucumber. So slowly but surely, tofu is the softest, right? From an ASEAN context. So slowly but surely, and in terms of the, size and the shape, so that's how we came up.
Perfect.
And Kenneth and John, the interesting insight, it was not a joke when I mentioned who wears the pants in the house, right? As males, if you have a problem like erectile dysfunction, you tend to shy away from confronting the problem or addressing the problem, right? So we also had an insight when we did some surveys and just through common sense human behavior observations. This resonated more with the female audience. So, those females that walk in for a usual cough and cold, out of curiosity, they ask, right, hey, doc, what's this? And then, of course, they can see what's your erection score. And then I think 70, maybe 30% or 40% of our market is because the wife pull ear, the husband go GP, consult and get the pill.
That's an amazing story, because like you wouldn't. That's actually very true, right? Like a lot of guys, right, will not be willing to go and see a doctor for that purpose, and I've actually seen that chart in the GP's office before. It's just that I never linked it to the fact that it was Pfizer, or it was. I found that was very interesting. That was how it came about.
Yeah, and I got to also like cite an example from our competitor, because our competitor also managing erectile dysfunction, and and our competitor to Viagra, they also understood the human behaviors around being a socially taboo medical condition. You don't really blow a trumpet and shout out loud that I'm suffering from erectile dysfunction, right? So what they did was pretty unique also, which I give kudos to them. They had this small sticker, and the sticker is basically facing the patient, right? You imagine you are in front of the physician in the consultation room, and the sticker says, if you are experiencing 1, 2, 3, and the 1, 2, 3 would be symptoms associated with erectile dysfunction. In a very layman terms, not blatantly asking you, are you suffering from erectile dysfunction? No, they ask, are you experiencing A, B, C? If you are a most probable suffer from erectile dysfunction. Place your hand on this sticker and the doctor will initiate a conversation with you. So you take away the awkwardness, so you can read it. It's really in your clear line of sight. You read it, you just put your hand here, the doctor can see it, he will initiate a conversation with you. How successful that was, I don't know, but the fact that they understood the human awkwardness and the behaviors, right? It was a good attempt in providing that value to the physician and the patient's experience, you see.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Oh, you know, I never asked you this question. Can you hear me? Good?
Yeah, can hear you.
Yeah, I have no choice. My computer decided to bail on me. But Fred, I never asked you this question, but what was your journey like as a marketer? How did you find yourself even going into this industry and this particular role in the first place?
Well, fresh out of university, right? For me, I always wanted to work in an ad agency, conceptualizing campaigns and blah blah blah. So marketing has always been a passion since our schooling. So even university, I pursued marketing management courses, right? Anything related to commercial management, general management strategy. So when I first got my gig in Pfizer, which is my first job, by the way, it was by default. Every ad agency shut their doors at my face. So I was desperate. I went for every interview, applied for everything. Pfizer happened to knock on my door, gave me a shot, 3 rounds of interviews, and eventually it gave me a job as a sales rep. And as a sales rep, it was totally a new world to me, right? As I mentioned, so regulated, and you need to confine and conform to specific rules of engagement with doctors. The way you market and sell your product, you better know your staff, the scientific staff. So long story short, after 3 years in sales, I wanted to dabble into marketing, going back to where my passions are. So I applied for internal positions, and I got the job as a junior product manager, which is a marketing role. And when I first started as a junior product manager in a pharmaceutical industry and a pharmaceutical giant like Pfizer, right? My perception of marketing was really, I would say, at an elementary level, because it's like whatever textbook concepts or theories that you have studied, right? You try to translate it literally wholesale into an execution mode, which more often than not, in the real world, it falls flat. I give you an example. My concept of good marketing back then was to make sure that I procure very good quality pens so that I have my product branding on it. Hopefully the ink doesn't run out, and the click and the whole aesthetics looks good, so when the doctors look at the pen, they fall in love with the pen, and they look at my product logo, they remember to prescribe my product. That was my concept of branding. It's got to be visible, in your face. I provided the doctors with pens, I provided them with notepads, everything that can be found on their desktop in the consultation room.
Okay.
So my concept is visible means good, but as I progress, I realized that the other 999 competitors are doing the same thing. So I'm not distinct, or I'm just one of the many, part of the herd, so to speak, right? So for me, as I progress and I've learned marketing in pharmaceuticals, when it comes to branding, that's the easy part, because pharmaceutical branding is already anchored and cast in stone, right? When you doing the research and development phase and doing the manufacturing phase, so the whole branding element is really done centrally at headquarters. When it comes down to our level, it's telling a story and how we want to basically add value to a couple of stakeholders, very key stakeholders, which are the medical community. And it's not only the doctors, it's the doctors, the nurses, the counselors, the administrators managing the clinic, the finance officers, the pharmacies. So there's so many stakeholders in the ecosystem that you need to basically create a specific plan of action on how you want to engage them. And then you go into the public community, which is everyday people like you and I, right? I mean, we have been sick, we go to the doctor, whether it's a family physician or specialist. How do we, as a company, provide programs or improve the dynamics between the physician and the patient so that their entire experience, despite being unwell, it's more palatable? So normally if you look behind the scenes, right, on some of the programs that hospitals or doctors introduce, as a patient or for your family or for yourself, it's more often than not the support and the behind the scenes facilitation of industry players like us. So this is the kind of support system that we provide to the medical community. So as a marketer, I am constantly challenging myself on how to add value to these stakeholders. And adding value is a very common buzzword, right? But does it really translate to an actual metric that matters to the hospital CEO, the head of department, the junior medical officers, the patient? So metrics are so important in pharmaceutical or every I would say
every
scenario.
marketer's job.
Yeah.
So I mean, talking about affecting stakeholders, in the recent years, I would say in the early days not so bad, but in recent years there's been this like perception shift in the public about pharmaceutical companies. And it's now pharmaceutical companies are coming up on headlines and the forefront, and there is this like sense, like negative sense, right, that pharmaceutical companies are kind of like not very good, they're a little bit evil. And part of it has got to do with this whole really bad like anti-vaccination, anti-pharma kind of a thing, big pharma. And like as a marketer, how do you view it, and like what's your perspective on it?
When I was younger, and being the gung-ho person that I was, right, I struggled, or I thought I struggled with the ethics, behind what is being, as you mentioned, kind of the perceived or the preconceived notion about the evils that the pharmaceutical industry does, right? And basically the evil, right, so to speak, is that pharmaceutical companies are a profit-driven entity, and a profit-driven entity at the expense of healthcare. So one would argue, this, there is a cohort of patient groups that are dying of cancer or whatever chronic heart diseases, and you are campaigning and pitching a product that costs by the hundreds and the thousands of dollars, right, for the patient to get well. And maybe that's a life-saving drug, right? So how can you profit from people's misery, right? But I think one needs to step back, and this is how I also got educated along the way. I realized that a lot of this, I would say, bad publicity, right, it's largely driven by a lot of those NGOs in the US, lobbyists in the US. And in the US, that narrative, right, because a lot of the big pharma companies are from the US, right, and it's a highly litigious
society.
Society there. So anything screws up, you get sued. So if you think carefully about the pharmaceutical industry, you take a life-saving drug like Lipitor or Novas, which is for cholesterol and for high blood pressure. These are all products that will prevent life-threatening diseases, so to speak. And if you look back at the R&D journey, right, it takes typically between 10 to 15 years from a product to evolve from conceptualization to an actual product that can be commercialized. And within that 10 to 15 years, right, there are millions and millions of dollars that are poured into R&D across multiple clinical trials, just to make sure that it's safe for human consumption, right? So, from laboratory to the actual clinical trials on human to commercialization, similar to what we are going through right now with COVID-19. The vaccines, everybody is trying to vie for the pole position to be the first in the market, right? But you see Russia, Putin has announced we are the first country that has a COVID-19 vaccine. But in terms of going through that vigorous safety testing, they are perceived to compromise on this particular process. So who dares to take that vaccine, right? So similarly, it takes years and millions of dollars, so that when you commercialize the product, obviously the margins has got to be substantial, so that there will be a continuation of a lot of research and development.
That's right.
And out of 100 products that are in the lab, probably only less than 5% at best gets out to the commercial world. So you can imagine the number of millions that are being poured into and wasted, so to speak. So if you balance I would say the narrative, right, the pros and cons, there are a lot of cons, no doubt, but there are more pros than cons. That's about it.
I actually totally agree with you, because say what we want, right? Like, you can't depend on, say, just a government entity to develop drugs for you need you need competing companies, like now we are seeing like COVID-19 vaccine, right? Everyone is jumping in and trying to create their own, and only through that can we get like viable vaccines.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And for the COVID-19 vaccines, it is a life-saving drug, right?
Yeah.
But I can guarantee you the profit margins will be by the hundreds of percent, whoever that is going to launch it. Just because there will still be a constant need to have the continued research and development in case the next wave or the virus mutates into a different form. They have multiple scenarios in the lab, and that requires a lot of investments and money, you see.
That actually sounds pretty scary, actually. John.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I think that's the reality of life, isn't it? I mean, as much as we want the I mean, this is really on the other side, right? As much as we want the pharmaceuticals to play this role of being, change for humanity and all that, but the reality is, if you don't make money from the drugs, there is no chance of another life-saving drug being discovered, in the process. So there must be a trade-off. I mean, there has to be enough in it so that there can be substantial investment poured into the labs and all the testing that has to be done. Because if not, then who's going to get their ass sued first? Other pharmaceutical companies.
No, absolutely, John. I mean, the word that you use that is absolutely on point is the trade-offs. You need to make those trade-offs. Again, there's the good and the bad and the ugly side, right, of the whole equation, so to speak. But all things said, there are more upsides than downsides. In terms of the role of a pharmaceutical firm, an R&D firm.
So so in terms of trade-off, now that you have spent 20 years doing this, what would you say is the one key lesson you would want to share with all marketers and all people who are in branding?
Wow. Okay.
Or is there more than one?
I think the first thing, right, I've learned, and this is through trial and error and in the hard way, is not to believe in your own bullshit too much, okay? Because when we as marketers, right, we sit into this brainstorming session and we come up with ideas left, right, center. The excitement and the whole adrenaline kicks in, right? And you try to basically make a cucumber sexy, right? For example, right? And sometimes you believe in your own bullshit. You forget, what is the actual original intent and the value of this particular product or your campaign, who are you really helping to shift the needle in terms of a behavioral change towards a more positive healthcare outcome, whether it's a self-managed empowerment story, or a program that will empower a patient to take care of his or her health better, or a training program that the marketers introduces for the junior doctors to accelerate their learning so that their productivity level is heightened, and the pressures in their healthcare system is also lesser in terms of the ability to treat complicated, complex medical cases. Now, if you believe in your bullshit too much, and you know that your product is probably a half-baked version of, say, the next competitor, but because if you are a brilliant marketer and you're a solid storyteller and you know how to navigate your way around not violating any compliance or ethical laws, but yet putting forth a very compelling, I would say, story or proposition to the public as well as the medical community, while knowing that your science backing up your products are perhaps suboptimal to the competitors, then sooner or later you will be called out. There's no running away. So if you want to believe in your bullshit because you're a good storyteller and a marketer, you can get away with it. And I got away with it for some time, but most of the time got caught in my early career as a junior marketer. When I say this is, coming out with brochures that have bold, sweeping claims. It's like selling snake oil, okay? And because of the terminologies that I use, it doesn't violate any laws. But, for a competent and expert eye, if they see this brochure, say, for example, Health Science Authority in Singapore, right? The governing body, just to make sure that everything is on point in terms of your claims and how you promote your pharmaceutical products, they will eventually catch you red-handed and take you to task. So I think these are some of the things especially for pharmaceutical marketing. You can believe in your bullshit, but only up to a certain point. So I think integrity and being really authentic and being self-aware, not only on yourself, but the range of products and the company that you're representing is so critical. And that takes perhaps maybe years of trial and error, and also a sense of maturity to embrace all these very basic fundamentals, right? But for me, as a young marketer, I learned it the hard way.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, Fred, moving on to one final question for you, because you have so much experience in marketing and all. How can marketers better reach out to their customer base now in a COVID world? Because everything, all the normal way of doing things, all gone. In your point of view, what's the best way now for them to reach out? Maybe not in the pharmaceutical sense, because you don't want to give ideas to your competitors.
Yeah, but I think most of the industry or all the competitors are doing the same thing, right? Which is what we call the buzzword now is multi-channel engagement. So out with the old ways of face-to-face discussions and roundtable talks, where you're physically in front of your customers or whatever stakeholders that you want to meet, right? So we have to employ different multi-channel engagements. The usual would be, of course, picking up the phone, email, but we also invest a lot in a lot of virtual platforms that are pretty innovative, where we can really translate simulate a conference, right, that normally is held in a convention center to the virtual world, through augmented reality and even artificial intelligence technology being weaved in, where there's some element of predictive modeling. And when you log into this whole system, right, you feel like you are in that particular conference live. and you still can have that same experience on a virtual platform without compromising on the quality of the discussions, the quality of the programs. So a lot of the players in the industry is transitioning to that. Now, obviously, the competitive edge, right, is down to some of the basic fundamentals, which is how is your quality? What is the quality of your program? If the same the other 999 competitors are using the same platform like Zoom, for example, so how are you going to distinct yourself, right? So you got to find ways of thinking about the topics, the quality of the speakers, and even accompanying peripheral programs, right? It's just not a lecture, interactive discussion, but you can introduce real programs such as patient assistance program in through your podcast or through your virtual platforms. You can introduce nursing certification courses where the nurses in the healthcare ecosystem is a often neglected stakeholder, but they are so integral, right, to patient care. They are the ones that are in the front line, as we've seen in COVID-19. They are the ones that plays a huge role in counseling, being the cheerleader. So, for companies such as us, we have to look at all the multiple stakeholders and ask ourselves, in the COVID-19 situation, how can we introduce programs that are for patients, for nurses, to upskill themselves in the virtual platform. And then once post-COVID and the new normal is established, of course, there will be a hybrid of virtual platforms and face-to-face, because a lot of the old school practitioners out there, right, who gravitate towards only the face-to-face interactions, they have no choice but to embrace virtual platforms as the new way of engagement and new ways of working. So in that regard, this is something that we have to invest in a lot. But another thing also is part of your marketing and your branding, right, is your internal branding, where you invest a lot in upskilling your own internal stakeholders. Because part of branding is also how you represent yourself, how the team represents not only your products but the entire DNA or the persona of the company, right, and the values that we represent. So it's so easy to neglect that aspect of looking after your own people. So from a marketing perspective, branding encompass every aspect of the key touch points you have with the external customer base, which includes your internal stakeholders, and woe to those who neglect to take the advantage of that. Everybody is at home working, remote engagement. We have to introduce all these virtual trainings, role playing, challenging the status quo, changing behaviors internally also. So when the sun comes up again externally, we are ready to make a better or stronger impact.
Wow, that's amazing. I really am very impressed by like the depth of knowledge, the stories, the experience that you have. I like, you are one of my favorite guests on the podcast.
We'll need to do with Fred like a 4-part mini series.
Yeah, we need to do, like, there's so much to learn from you. There's so much to hear. Thank you, Frederick, for taking the time out for this. We've come to the end of another episode. This is episode 18 of the Branding Beardos. That's amazing. And we want to thank Frederick for your time. And we also want to let everyone know to remember to like, subscribe, and share, all this important information that you're getting. Until next week, this is Kenneth.
And also one more, if you're ever having trouble in the bedroom, feel free to talk to your doctor.
Until next time, this is Ken Lee.
And this is Big John.
And we will see you